If you missed our interview with Arizona State cornerback Keith Abney, who was drafted in the 5th round by the Detroit Lions, you can hear it again later today at 2:45 Eastern this afternoon, 1:45 Central Time. Alongside Ari Timken, I'm James Westling, and we welcome in Dave Helman, co-host of the Athletic Football Show, LSU grad in Chicago. What's up, Dave?
What's up, my guys? Not a whole lot. Happy to be here.
Well, we're excited to have you on. Man, you guys, the Athletic Football Show, you guys were all over the draft. You noted that Ari's Bears got excellent value in Arizona State linebacker Keyshawn Elliott in the 5th. Before we talk specifics, just what was the overarching biggest story from the NFL draft in your eyes?
I mean, I hate to be cliche and talk about the obvious thing, but when a team drafts a quarterback in the top 15 that most people saw as a fringe first-round pick, maybe a day 2 pick, I think that's going to dominate the talking points, especially since the LA Rams are seen as a Super Bowl contender, arguably heading into the summer. I think probably the Super Bowl favorite, if you were asking me. And so to take a pick for a year ahead of time, and again, a guy that I think people like Ty Simpson, but just not consensusly seen as that sort of prospect. I mean, that's, just waking up on this Monday morning, looking at all the morning talk shows, that's what everybody's going on about. And I think it makes perfect sense. It's definitely, and of course, we're probably going to have to wait a couple years to even see how that decision ages. But I definitely think we're going to be talking about it for a while.
Helman is somebody that went to an SEC school, but you've watched and observed the draft for many years. What's your read on the trajectory of the Big 12 right now with 38 picks here? It was, I think we talked about 11 in the top 64, 14 in the top 100. What kind of a story are you telling yourself from a Big 12 perspective right now?
Yeah, I was just thinking about that because I knew I was coming on with y'all, and I was just refreshing myself on who went where and what schools they went to. And I'd say it's a pretty damn impressive showing from the Big 12, considering that the Big 10 and the SEC are, at least perception-wise, seen as being on another step above the rest of the conferences. But I mean, David Bailey, Jordan Tyson, both going in the top 10. You see guys, so many Texas Tech players got drafted. You have the Utah tackles going in the first round. So I think what it says to me, and we've seen this, the story of last college football season is that Indiana was the best program in college football. I just, you can do whatever you want to if you've got the money to pay for it, right? Yeah. And so we used to sit here and say like all the best players are from the Southeast, or whatever regional thing you want to pump your chest about. And these days, I just think college football is becoming more and more like a business. And so, the Big 12's got programs that want to compete and have the money to invest. Then they're going to have really good players, and that reflected in what the top of the draft looked like.
Yeah, Texas Tech tied for 4th in the country with 9 guys getting drafted. In terms of the Big 12 guys that were taken in the first round, 3 in the top 10 with David Bailey 2nd, Jordan Tyson going 8th, Spencer Fano going 9th, and then 6 first-rounders and 11 through first and second round. Of the first-round guys, like in terms of fit, who do you like the most from the Big 12?
Oh man, well I already said his name. There's a couple, and like we love all the Tech guys. Tech had such a phenomenal season, but what a showing from Arizona State, to be honest with you. I was joking. We've made a lot of jokes at Clemson's expense this year because they had so many draft picks and it just didn't really reflect on the field. Arizona State's another one where I look at it, and obviously Jordan Tyson was hurt for a lot of the year, so that's a big part of it. But I looked at it and I was like, damn, you would never guess that Arizona State kind of struggled or, didn't live up to the hype from that playoff appearance with the number of guys they had drafted. And I mentioned his name already, but if he can stay healthy, and I want him to so badly, I'm really excited about Jordan Tyson. I love where he landed. You go to a Saints offense that has a phenomenal offensive line. You've got another wide receiver in Chris Olave, who I think he can work really well with. Outside ball-winning guy. Jordan Tyson can move around the formation, do a lot of other stuff. I think the Saints loaded up in free agency. They signed a big time guard and a big time running back as well. I mean, it's all there for Tyler Shuck to prove that he can be the guy. And if he is, then Jordan Tyson's going to benefit from it. I loved that landing spot for him.
Another guy that I heard you guys talking about on the football show, great work, by the way, there with Dane and Robert Mays.
Thank you.
Was Keith Abney. And, he's a guy we actually had on the show today. I think Dane had him as a second or third round grade. Not sure where you thought he would figure, but just kind of give us your thoughts there on another probably underdrafted Arizona State player.
You call me a coward. I don't do the board. I watch as many guys as I humanly can, but I don't have a board. I don't want to pretend like I can rank prospects as well as Dane or as well as NFL teams.
And by the way, you're way better at it than most people that do have boards, so you should. But I appreciate that.
I appreciate that. I really like Keith Abney though, and I was surprised at how far he fell. Like, it's not a shock when a guy falls out of the top 100, but to see him fall all the way down to 157. I was a little bit surprised by that, but maybe teams were a little bit worried about his size or his versatility. I'm not sure, but I think it makes a ton of sense that he landed in Detroit. They've kind of favored corners like that over the years, and I think he fits the culture there really well. And if you're talking about bargains, and right, like we never know how good any of these guys are going to be in the NFL on draft weekend, but I think that's really good value for a guy that Dane saw as a top 100 pick, a guy that most people saw as at least one of the 10 best corners in this class. I liked that pick a lot for the Lions.
Yeah, that's a great point, Dave. And it seems like post-draft, we have a tendency to look at all these guys and be like, man, he fell to this round and this guy fell to this spot. So for that to happen, a bunch of guys have to be drafted higher than their projection. Just who are the guys outside of Ty Simpson off the top of your head that got drafted way above where you thought they'd go?
I mean, this is nerdy, but one of my lasting memories from this draft is going to be the run on tight ends that we saw on day 2. And Dane and I went into it knowing that there were a boatload of good tight ends, a boatload of guys were going to get drafted. And you see it all the time where teams just don't see this stuff the same way as us. They're like, one team's stack will be completely different than the others, and obviously different from what those of us in the media think. But still, I mean, Nate Bokercher out of Texas A&M, one of the more surprising picks of day 2. I really like him as a player. I thought it would be another hour or two before I heard his name. For him to go 56th overall was pretty darn surprising. And honestly, the next tight end off the board after him, Marlon Klein, out of Michigan, is a guy that, again, a lot of people like him, but I don't know if people liked him as much as they liked Max Clare out of Ohio State or Sam Roush out of Stanford or Oscar Delp out of Georgia. So the way that teams prioritize things, and it's not to say they're wrong, by the way, because teams will draft for scheme fit and what they're asking you to do. Maybe this guy's a better blocker, so he makes way more sense for us, all that type of stuff. Obviously, they're privy to medical and character information that we don't always get either. So I hesitate to kill teams for these sorts of picks until we get to see more stuff, but few of those tight end names really caught me off guard. And then, sorry to say, Ari, I was pumped for my guy Xavier Thomas because I love him and he went to LSU. But that kind of took my breath away. Like, for him to be the 89th pick, I mean, LSU's offense was a disaster last year. He didn't have a whole lot of opportunity to show his stuff. I think most people saw him as like a 5th round, maybe 6th round guy. And he was pick 89. So I'm rooting like hell for him. And I really do like him as a player, but that one caught me off guard.
Yeah, and look, the one thing I'll say about that, not like the Bears needed more receivers, especially for a team that needs a lot of help on defense, didn't exactly address that. But I think they view him specifically as a kick returner, punt returner with some upside as a receiver, which is why I think maybe their evaluation was different from most others, because I'm assuming most of the evaluations came out of him as a wide receiver. I think the Bears saw him more as a special teams contributor with maybe more upside down the road, because they just didn't get anything out of their kick return, punt return unit last year. So I think that's the one side that I saw in the Thomas piece. But I do wonder just overall, like, was this the largest discrepancy you can remember, Helman, like between the consensus board and maybe where teams had players? Because it felt like going into this draft, it would be really difficult to figure out where all these teams had these players slotted. Did it actually transpire that way?
I'd have to go back and look to know if it was some sort of notable discrepancy. But I mean, it
felt
lived
like it.
up to it. No, it lived up to what I thought it might be. And night one was not that surprising. But the thing about that's the funny thing. Like when the first round of the draft's over, people are always like, "Oh, he wasn't as weird as I thought it would be." And I was like, "I would hope not." We talked about it for 6 months. Like we beat the top of the draft into the ground to a degree where we spend even the last 2 weeks before the draft saying like, "Okay, who are some surprise guys? Who are some fringe guys?" Like what aren't we talking about? So even the unlikely stuff we examine from every angle. I mean, I'm just looking over the first round right now. The one guy that got drafted on Thursday night that I really wasn't expecting was Caleb Banks out of Florida, and that's mainly just because of injury. Like, he absolutely has the talent to be a top 20 pick. He's just been hurt. And so, like, everything else, and even, like, obviously Ty Simpson was a surprise, but we talked about it plenty. So the top of the draft wasn't all that surprising to me. But again, you get into Friday where the grades start to be a little more similar. They start to touch a little bit more. You see some guys fall to a range that we really weren't expecting. We saw the league, quote unquote, overdraft a few guys. It was Friday and Saturday were a lot of fun because the grades were just all over the place, obviously.
Yeah. Talking with Dave Helman, co-host of the Athletic Football Show. LSU grad, works for The Athletic. Want to get your thoughts on what you guys were saying about Jacob Rodriguez, just his fit in Miami.
Honestly, my big thing with Rodriguez, I'm curious what it means for the Dolphins' build moving forward. And as somebody who pays close attention to the Dallas Cowboys, I'm really curious because Dolphins used pick 43 on Rodriguez, and then they drafted Kyle Lewis out of Pitt later on. Guy that a lot of people are really high on. He's just classic kind of a tweener. Is he a linebacker? Is he a safety? What do you do with him? But so they drafted two really promising young linebackers, and I just look at Jordan Brooks down there in Miami, phenomenal linebacker, who is not on a long-term deal, and I'm like, okay, what do we got planned over there, Dolphins? Are you interested in moving Jordan Brooks, or are you just trying to load up your linebacker depth chart? So that was my primary impression, but obviously Jacob Rodriguez, just a phenomenal player. I think he proved during the course of the draft process that he is a better athlete than he was getting credit for. His combine times and all the fun underwear Olympic stuff. Like, he's a better athlete than he was given credit for. But talking to people around the league, I didn't buy that he was going to sneak into the first round. I think, the production is off the charts, but when you're talking about first round picks, people are looking for that blend of production and traits. And I don't know that I thought the traits were going to be good enough to get him up there, but 43 is right around where it makes sense. I believe he was the second linebacker off the board, so behind Sonny Styles. Clearly teams thought very, very highly of him. Such an intelligent player, and I don't know exactly what it's going to look like. Like I said, I'm keeping an eye on Jordan Brooks, but I'm guessing he's going to have an early pathway to playing time, and there's so much opportunity there with the Dolphins because they are just a blank slate. So I would imagine this is a guy that's going to play a lot of snaps as a rookie, regardless of whether Brooks is there or not.
All right, Dave, real quick before we let you go, I grew up in Kansas, lifelong Chiefs fan. Tell me about the LSU corner that the Chiefs traded up to get.
Oh, man, Mansour Delane. Kind of similar to Jacob Rodriguez, and it's the story of this draft. Mansour Delane, he's just not going to be seen as like this sexy prospect because he doesn't have like the out of your mind traits of a number 6 overall cornerback. Like, he's not the biggest guy. I know he ran a 4.38 at his pro day, but I'm not buying that. Like, he doesn't have elite speed, but it's a classic case of just turn on the tape, man. I mean, you watch any LSU game, he's going against everybody's best guy. Casey Concepcion out of Texas A&M got him a couple times, but for the most part, across the season, he was just all over it. I want to say, I think the stat was that he gave up something like 19 receptions for either 0 or 1 touchdowns across the year. And this was on an LSU team that didn't have a whole lot to play for by the second half of October. Just a smooth, clean player, so good in coverage, so confident in coverage. And, I think a lot of us tricked ourselves into thinking the Chiefs wouldn't use a big pick on a cornerback because they don't usually.
Yeah.
But I don't think there's any question that he was the best cornerback in this draft class. And so for them to prioritize that, and I said it at the time, I think a lot of people were confused or, was this worth a trade up? And I look at it and I'm like, man, if Steve Spagnuolo prioritized this guy enough to encourage the Chiefs to get this done, what other recommendation could you want? I think the world of the guy. And again, that's another guy where he's landing in a spot where they're going to give him all the tools and the opportunity to be successful. I was excited about that.
Yeah, he'll be CB1. Dave, awesome stuff, man. Appreciate your time. We'll have you on again.
Appreciate it, guys.
Thanks, Dave. Be well, man.
Dave
Y'all
Helman.
too.
Dave Helman,
Thanks, guys.
co-host of the Athletic Football Show, joining us here on Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio to break down the NFL Draft. Coming up next, we break down the Houston Cougars. It's part of our full court review series. We are going through each and every of the 16 Big 12 member institutions, reviewing their basketball season from this past year, taking a look ahead, and we'll be joined by Jeremy Branham, the Houston play-by-play announcer for basketball, here in about 20 minutes. Houston, the team we highlight today. He's Ari, I'm James. This is Big 12 Radio, powered by Modelo.